And just give me a second to get everything set up here. All right. That's there. Okay. I think we can switch the other camera on now. Okay. 1 second. Okay. Actually, let me check. So if we're streaming on Facebook, because we had problems with that the other day. Nope. Let me just change the caster. Why? Give me 1 second. Just got to get set up again. Yep. Okay. Okay, we should be streaming now. Heck. Wait a second. Okay, we just give me 1 more minute. Want to make sure that we're still streaming on Facebook. All right. Yes, it's working. Okay, we're ready to roll. All right, we'll get the guitar out. So what we're going to do tonight is, since I wasn't online yesterday, and yesterday was Shivas Thakur's disappearance day, I'm going to speak a little bit more about Shivas Thakur. More means we had programs last night. The reason I was not able to get on for the last week almost was that I was traveling, doing some troubleshooting in different places, and things were really intense. And then we got back, and then last night we had two programs in different people's houses. They were warming the house, even though it's quite warm here right now. So anyway, so what we're going to do is, again, we're going to talk about Srivas Thakur, because yesterday was his disappearance day. And one reason I'm doing that is because the day or the celebration or commemoration of the day that Srivas Thakur disappeared is also the anniversary of me taking sannyas 45 years ago, before anyone here was born. Okay, so let's chant the prayers of the departed Vaishnavas. Hey no bravo kota gela jai go Kaha moraba swarupa Kaha sanatan Kakata saranggo nata patita van Ka morabanta juga Ka kami raj Hekakale Takela Gora Natura Shane Kutimo Mata Anane Pashi Magunera Nere Kutakele Abo Sisa Bazan Irasande Ekoilove Las Chikangana Payakande Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parvacharya also Tada Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Savaya Chalanana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Vilas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Gadadha Shiva Siddhi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath. Syamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathuranam Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Yamunamai Ki Jai. Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Pragananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Shilavad Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Pataya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharane Nivashesha Shunya Vadi Paschachate Shatarni. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So as I mentioned at the beginning of class, not all of you were there, today is not the disappearance day of Srivas Thakur, but yesterday was. And so I wasn't able to go online because I was doing so many programs at people's homes that I didn't have time, obviously. So what I'm going to do this evening, or this morning, depending on where you are, is to talk about Srivas Thakur and also talk about my relationship with this day, not my relationship with Srivas Thakur. And this day is very important. This is the 45th anniversary of my taking sannyas, and I'm going to explain what sannyas is all about, which we did last night, but for those of you who weren't around in our home programs, and I assume most of you online weren't, you didn't hear about those things. Okay, so let me read the translation of this poem. He who brought the treasure of divine love and it was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam simply weeps. So, Om Ganata Vidandasha, Gadanjana Shlakaya, Chakshur Urmeditam Yena. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge while I was blind in the darkness of ignorance. So now we're going to speak a little bit about Srivas Thakur, and I'm trying to speak a little bit differently than I did last night at the program, so it will take some thought process or processes. So, as far as Srivas Thakur, we know he's a member of the Panchatattva. And we worship the Panchatattva. Actually, the first deities that I worshipped in ISKCON were the Panchatattva, or was the Panchatattva, or were the Panchatattva. There's 5 of them, so you can say were or was. We're all the 5 members of the Panchatattva. So you may say, how did I worship the Panchatattva when there were no Panchatattva deities installed at that time? Well, we had a beautiful picture of the Panchatattva. It was a dancing picture. There's 2 types of worship pictures of the Panchatattva that we generally see. One is they're standing on lotus flowers, and the other type of picture is the picture where they're dancing in ecstasy. So I prefer the picture of them dancing in ecstasy, and that was our altar when I joined the movement, and I became a pujari for that altar. And you may say, but didn't you need deities? Well, my answer is, those are deities. A deity can be a painting. We don't understand, generally, oh, I do, maybe you don't. We generally do not understand that Krishna is just as much present in a picture as he is in the three-dimensional deity form. Therefore, generally I find that devotees don't respect the pictures that much, thinking, oh, it's just a picture. And they may put pictures of Krishna on their shirts, but would you put a deity on your shirt? I don't think so. So, I worship the Panchatattva, and so many people joined because of the worship of the Panchatattva. It's interesting, isn't it? Even though we had no deities, it was a dancing temple and a prasadam temple too. And that was in Gainesville, Florida in 1971. And it was ecstatic. Things were very simple. We had feasts, prasadam, dancing, book distribution, and philosophy. Five books a day we were studying, 5 classes a day. It was an ecstatic time in Krishna consciousness. It was the KISS philosophy, keep it simple, sadhu. And then everything was very, very nice at that time. Of course, it's very nice now. I can't complain. I am having the time of my life in my old age. So anyway, so we worship Srivas Thakur. So who is Srivas Thakur? Srivas Thakur is, of course, a jiva soul. What is a jiva soul? A jiva soul, as we're reading in the Jaiva Dharma, if you remember the last time we read the Jaiva Dharma, about a week ago or something, as we're reading, it's the jiva soul is the tatastha shakti of the Lord. That means we have the ability to go for spirit or matter. Actually, we are spirit. It's described in one sense, we're actually emanations from the Chit Shakti. Oh my God. I'm not saying it. We are Chit Shakti. We're emanations from the Chit Shakti. In one sense, not different from the Chit Shakti. The spiritual potency of the Lord. And there are many jivas who never come down to the material world, who never make the wrong choices. Of course, Srivas Thakur is Narada Muni, and he's Nityasiddha. However, previously Narada Muni was not Narada Muni. Previously Narada Muni was the son of a maidservant. He didn't even know who his father was. And he got the opportunity to serve the Vaishnavas during the 4 months of the rainy season. And he took initiation from the Vaishnavas. And then Krishna arranged things in a very heavy way for him to renounce. That is, his mother passed away when he was about 5 years old, and he just headed for the hills and got Krishna's mercy. But really the secret was, that he got the association of the Vaishnavas. And so that's really what Srivas Thakur teaches us in terms of his devotional service, how important the service to the Vaishnavas is. So it's very interesting how he's teaching this to us. First of all, he was serving the Vaishnavas by hosting every night, and sometimes for 72 hours, hosting kirtan at his house. That takes a lot of hospitality and people dancing all the time. And he was serving the Vaishnavas with such dedication that, here's a story, that during one kirtan, his son passed away. And so what happened? Nobody knew that the son had passed away, at least the men didn't know. And Srivas Thakur saw his wife crying. And he said to her, his wife's name was Malini, who incidentally was a very close friend of Sachimata, the mother of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and who cared for Sachimata when Sachimata was pregnant. So he said to his wife Malini, "Why are you crying?" And Malini said, "Your son passed away." And Srivas Thakur said, "Stop your crying. Stop your crying. We do not want to interfere with the kirtan of Lord Chaitanya and the devotees." Wow. That is dedication to the service of the Lord. Of course, later on, we know the story that when the kirtan stopped, Lord Chaitanya sensed that something had gone awry. Actually, it's awry is the word. And he said to Srivas Thakur, "What happened?" And Srivas Thakur said, "There's nothing too consequential, my dear Lord." And then Lord Chaitanya said, "Tell us." And Srivas Thakur said, "My son passed away." And Lord Chaitanya said, "Why didn't you stop the kirtan and tell me?" And Srivas Thakur said, "I didn't want to disturb the ecstasy of yourself and other devotees." Whew. Wow. Then Lord Chaitanya said, "Where's your son?" So they went into where the body was, and Lord Chaitanya touched the heart of the son. Son came back to life and said, "I have had so many lifetimes, so many mothers and fathers. And in this life, basically, I've died during the kirtan." So back to home, back to God. So in other words, one should not think negatively about Srivas Thakur, that he was just hard-hearted. He wanted the kirtan to continue because that's the way his son would go back to Godhead. So he was actually thinking of the welfare of the son. Generally, when people are lamenting or someone passes away, they're thinking about themselves. What will I do without that person? They're not thinking about the person. Of course, when the spiritual master passes away, we're not concerned with the spiritual master because he's gone to serve Krishna, Nitya Leela. But when an ordinary person passes away, we're actually thinking about ourselves. What sense gratification I got from that person. But Srivas Thakur was actually thinking about his son, thinking about Lord Chaitanya's pleasure, and this is the mood of a devotee, always thinking of what's best, not only for the Lord, but whatever is best for the Lord is best for everybody. That's true. Just like if we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's the best thing we can do for our family. Let's say we want to join the Krishna consciousness movement, and our family says, "No, you have to serve us." Hint, hint, that was my personal experience. So you have to serve us. You have so much to do to serve us. And later on, maybe when we get old, you can take up spirituality. And so one should think, what is the best type of service I can do? Because if one serves the Lord by pleasing him, then all one's family gets benefited. Let's give me a practical example. My own life, I was serving Krishna much to the disturbance, or how would you say that? What's the consternation of my mother? She was really like, "Oh my God, my poor son, my dearmost son, my favorite son, my intelligent son. What has he done? Throwing his life away." So, okay, so you may say, "Oh, you were hard-hearted," but I wasn't hard-hearted because at the very end of my mother's life, she died with prasadam in her mouth, hearing the holy names, and basically she at least guaranteed a birth as a devotee in the next life. Wow, because she was remembering me. Amazing. So anyway, so Srivas Thakur, the point is Srivas Thakur was not hard-hearted. He did the best thing for his family. You want to do the best thing for your family? Be a devotee. I mean, you still should be kind to your family and do what you can. But don't leave Krishna consciousness just to please your family, because that will be displeasing for them in the long run when they leave their bodies. So you want to please them ultimately. So, many other stories about the importance in Srivas Thakur's life about the importance of Vaishnava Seva. Of course, we did mention last night the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's three most important teachings, are Jivadoy. What does that Jivadoy mean? Compassion. Compassion upon who? The Jiva soul, the innocent people of this world. We should always feel great compassion. Of course, the opposite of compassion is envy. We should just feel. So when we see someone who's not Krishna conscious or is lacking in Krishna consciousness or doesn't know about Krishna consciousness, we should actually just feel tears should well up in our eyes. Think, Krishna, please help them. Please help them. Whew. That's compassion. That's love. So we should feel sad. Para dukkha dukhi. Para dukkha dukhi is what? We're not interested in our own happiness, but we are interested in the happiness of others. And you see that in Srivas Thakur's house, just two more stories. Actually, three more stories. That Srivas Thakur's house, the nectar, the bhava, the prema was overflowing. And so one maidservant of Srivas Thakur, who was serving him and his family very nicely, her name used to be Duki. Duki means unhappy. And because she served Krishna or Srivas Thakur so nicely, then she became known as Sukhi, which means happy. And Lord Chaitanya basically initiated her with that name, Sukhi Devi Dasi. It's interesting. And that shows the importance. Again, I want to reiterate this point of serving the Vaishnavas. Krishna makes this statement so many places. Mahatseva Mahor Vimuktes. That's Lord Rishabhadeva in the Bhagavatam. Sadhusanga, Sadhusanga, Sarvashrakoi, Lavamatra Sadhusanga, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. These are very important principles that Krishna becomes very pleased when we please. It's funny, of course, Prabhupada said, if I please your dog, then you get pleased. Or when you approach someone who has a child, if you please their child, the parents will just be overwhelmed. Just like, for example, we have this program. One of my dear disciples is doing a little dance program here in Nugaloka. And so many of the young children are coming for the dance classes. And so what that means, it means the parents are just becoming ecstatic about the Krishna conscious movement. It's very it's very nice. Anyway, so this is really important. Anyway, so we please the devotees, Krishna gets pleased. So there's the Dukhi, who became Sukhi, misery, who became happiness, the tailor, who was even a meat eater, he was serving Srivas Thakur, and he became a pure devotee. He was given pure love of God. Of course, he stopped eating meat. And so, so many examples of this in Srivas Thakur's house. Another example in Srivas Thakur's house is that of Narayani. Srivas Thakur had a niece named Narayani, who was in Krishna Leela. I guess her father passed away or something like that. In Krishna Leela was Ambika's sister, sorry. That means the sister of Krishna's nurse. So, And she, later on, of course, she was actually given prasadam by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the remnants of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Chaitanya said to her, Dharayani, dance. And Dharayani started rolling around next to me, even though she was a little tiny girl. And later on, when she grew older and she got married, she gave birth to Vrindavan Das Thakur. Vrindavan Das Thakur was, of course, the author of the Chaitanya Bhagavat. So you have so many pastimes connected with Srivas Thakur. And even, I'll tell some other pastimes I didn't tell last night. When Srivas Thakur was taking part in dramas or plays that were put on by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he played the part of Narada Muni. And they had these ecstatic dramas that were put on. And Haridas Thakur was there in the drama. Lord Chaitanya, he played part of the Goddess of Fortune in the drama. Really amazing dramas. Oh, okay. On the other hand, anyone who offended Srivas Thakur, they were finished. Okay? Tell a story about that. Once upon a time, so this is the topic of today, the importance of serving Vaishnavas. So once upon a time, there was a devotee who was really upset because he was not allowed into the kirtan with Lord Chaitanya and Lord Chaitanya's associates at Srivas Thakur's house. So he blamed Srivas Thakur. And he said, I'm going to get even with him. So he's going to offend Srivas Thakur. So, if one pleases the Vaishnava, one gets Krishna conscious. If one offends or displeases the Vaishnava, one gets not only the opposite of Krishna consciousness, one gets material misery. Okay. So his name was Gopal Chapala. And Gopal Chapala, he thought the best way to offend or to hurt Srivas Thakur is to frame him. What do I mean by framing him? Not a picture frame like that, but frame him so it would seem that he was deviating from Vaishnavism by worshipping in a left-handed way Durga. I mean Shakti. Shakta. Shakta. So there's Shaktas and Bhaktas. Bhakta is worshipping Krishna, and a Shakta is worshipping the energy of Krishna in order to get power. And so there's a methodology to worship the Shakti. And, of course, Durga is the Shakti. And there's so many ingredients that are used in her worship, the left-handed Shakta, or Shakti worship, and vermilion and other things like that. And so this Gopal Chapala decided to frame Srivas Thakur so it would seem that he was worshipping Durga. So outside of his door, he put all the ingredients for worshipping Durga. He thought, now I'm going to teach him a lesson for not letting me in. So, after 3 days, after he did this, of course, all right, backtrack a little bit. So, Srivas Thakur didn't think anything of it. He said, all right, when he opened his door that morning, I guess everybody else was worshiping Durga. And everybody knew it was a setup, what we call framing someone. Just like sometimes in America, if the police want to frame someone, they'll plant drugs in their car and then arrest them. Okay, same thing. So after 3 days, this Gopal Chapala got leprosy. And so you all know what leprosy is. Leprosy is your fingers shrink up and everything like that. So he was completely miserable. And he had some sort of faith in Lord Chaitanya, so he wanted to approach Lord Chaitanya to free him from this misery. Okay. So he went, my dear Lord Chaitanya, you are what? Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayata. You're the most merciful incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Free me from this. And Lord Chaitanya, was so upset with this guy that he not only refused to free him from leprosy, he cursed him. He said, because you have offended Srivas Thakur, you will be bitten by worms, because that's what leprosy is, all sorts of worms in there, and the pus and everything. You'll be bitten by these worms from millions of years or lifetimes. So even Lord Chaitanya was not going to give him mercy. Later on, of course, this Gopal Chapala approached Srivas Thakur. Then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him mercy, and he was freed from his leprosy. So that happens sometimes. Oh my God. What a story. Another story is Devananda Pandit. Okay. Devananda Pandit, and you know how a devotee was offended. How a devotee offended Srivas Thakur. So Devananda Pandit means like a learned person. He was giving Bhagavatam class regularly. You know, just like a professional reciter giving Bhagavatam class. We see that all the time in India. And he was giving Bhagavatam class, and Srivas Thakur happened to walk by his Bhagavatam class, and when Srivas Thakur heard the Bhagavatam, because when a pure devotee hears the chanting of Krishna's name or Krishna Katha, the pure devotee Mahaprabhu Kirtana and Richagita Vadita Ramadyan Manaso Rasena feels intense ecstasy. So Srivas Thakur fainted in ecstasy right in the middle of Devananda Pandit's class, and so Devananda Pandit's disciples kicked Srivas Thakur, literally just carried him out of the class and dumped him outside. And of course that was an offense. And Srivas Thakur didn't think anything of it. He just picked himself up. He didn't take offense. Just like Prabhupada explains, that even if the pure devotee doesn't harbor any grudge or take an offense, the dust from his feet, which means Krishna knows, will actually give him a result or reaction to that particular offense. So that's what happened with this Devananda Pandit. His reaction was not as heavy as Gopal Chapala. Okay. His reaction was that Lord Chaitanya later on was walking by his Bhagavatam class, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu yelled out very loudly, right in the middle of class, this Devananda Pandit will never understand the Bhagavatam. Later on, Devananda Pandit served a Vaishnava. Like I said, this is the topic of today's class. Later on, Devananda Pandit served a Vaishnava. He served this Vaishnava, a Vakeshwara Pandit. So what happened was Vakeshwara Pandit, who was a great dancer, and Lord Chaitanya loved his dancing. He would dance for 72 hours. That's a record without stop. And so this Vakeshwara Pandit was dancing, and Devananda Pandit protected him from the crowd. And by protecting him from the crowd, that was his service, and therefore he became forgiven by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if you made an offense, the best way is to actually serve the Vaishnava that you. And would sometimes test Srivas Thakur. We mentioned one test. Oh, internet connection is stable. Give me a second to be stable again. So we mentioned one test before, which is when Srivas Thakur's son passed away. But there was another test. known Avaduta. Avaduta means like the winds. Okay. What does it mean? That basically it almost appears like someone's a hippie. Not that they're smoking marijuana or anything like that. It's just like Lord Nityananda, even though he was supposed to be a so-called sannyasi, he would wear earrings and opulent clothes. And sometimes he'd be so much ecstasy, he'd throw off his clothes, and Lord Chaitanya had to put the clothes back on him. So he was known as an Avaduta, quite an unusual devotee. But he was Krishna. Actually, Balaram, but Balaram is non-different from Krishna. So that's why when we want to get Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we have to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda. Is considered to be the original spiritual master, and the spiritual master that we have is a representative of Lord Nityananda. So what happened is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to see if Srivas had firm faith in Lord Nityananda. So he went to Srivas Thakur and said, acts really wild. Why do you let him in your house? And Srivas Thakur answered in a way that was very pleasing to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, even if Nitai goes to a liquor store, of course not to get drunk, but maybe to preach, or he marries a Muslim girl, I will still not be dissuaded from my conviction that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead and serve him. And Lord Chaitanya embraced Srivas Thakur and said, Srivas Thakur, you have my mercy. So really that was a test, again, of service to Vaishnavas, because Lord Nityananda is the best Vaishnava, as was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Srivas, okay, another story. So Srivas really enabled Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to manifest ecstasies, not only in the Srivas Angam, but Srivas Thakur was able to see Lord Chaitanya's ecstasies for what they were, that ecstasies, because what happened is that sometimes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be exhibiting Mahabhav. Mahabhav means the great ecstasy that Srimati Radharani would exhibit. And his mother, that is Sachimata, would think that Lord Chaitanya is sick, or she thought it might be a wind disorder. Send him to the Ayurvedic physician. And so, of course, this wind disorder was diagnosed by Srivas Thakur as pure love of Krishna. So, Srivas Thakur, here's another story about Srivas Thakur's kirtan, and we'll get to the sannyas thing in a second because the time is running out. So, Srivas Thakur would only let pure devotees in the kirtan. One time, Srivas Thakur made a mistake. And he let a Brahmanan, who he thought was very pure, because this Brahmanan would live only by drinking milk. Sometimes we think that our external austerities are pleasing to Krishna. Got news for you. Unless they increase our bhakti, increase our service, we're servants. Try to remember that. Today I was driving by, last night too, driving by some nice lakes. This is an interesting realization. And looking at the lakes and thinking how beautiful. I said, well, got to connect it to Krishna. And then I went a step up. I said, well, this is Krishna's energy. Krishna's everywhere. Okay, that's one step up. Universal form. That's also a step up. Appreciating the beauty because it's connected with Krishna. It comes from Krishna. Okay, step up. Let me go higher. Oh, how can I use this in Krishna's service? So when a devotee, a Braj devotee, sees something, he's not simply thinking this belongs to Krishna. He's thinking, how can I use it in Krishna's service. So, there's several different steps. One is the materialistic step of enjoying. The next step is to see it as Krishna's energy. Well, that's like universal form type of stuff. The mountains are the stacks of bones, the trees are his hair. Yeah, everything comes from Krishna. Ham sarvasya prabhu, mataksaram pravotade, iti matva pashantivam. But actually, the highest is just thinking, this is meant to please Krishna. Let me somehow or other use this or plan how to use this to please Krishna. So that's really the highest stage. That's the Braj consciousness. Not to please myself. Not to simply see that everything is connected with Krishna, and everything is connected with Krishna, but to see how everything should be used in Krishna's service and for the purpose of pleasing him. Okay. So, anyway, so there's a Brahmin who was only drinking milk. And he was led into the kirtan because Srivas Thakur thought, this is a great devotee. Austerity. Like that. So Lord Chaitanya again had that reaction that, there's no ecstasy in this kirtan. Someone here doesn't belong. And Srivas Thakur said, just this Brahmin, he's pure, he's living just by drinking milk. He's executed all these austerities. And Lord Chaitanya said, that does not qualify one. Austerities do not qualify one. And so they got ready to kick the Brahmin out. The Brahmin showed great humility, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu later accepted the Brahmin. So these are some of the stories of Srivas Thakur. But just one final quote I want to read about Srivas Thakur is that when Srivas Thakur was confronted with Lord Chaitanya after Lord Chaitanya took initiation. We mentioned last night before Lord Chaitanya took initiation from Ishwara Puri. He just manifested himself as a logician who was basically accosting the devotees and challenging the devotees. But anyway, so then after he took initiation in Gaya, he came to Srivas and he called Srivas. He said, Srivas, I am the person who you have been worshipping. And Srivas Thakur previously had been thinking, this person is so arrogant, before he took initiation. Because Lord Chaitanya was showing us the purpose of, or the importance of, accepting a spiritual master and taking initiation. So, after that, then Lord Chaitanya manifested his form with 4 arms to Srivas Thakur, said, I am the person who you've been worshipping, I am sitting on the Vyasasan. And there's this interesting quote I'd like to read, written by Srivas Thakur. My obeisance is at the lotus feet of the support of the entire universe, Vishwambar, whose bodily color is like that of a newly arrived rain cloud, and whose garments are the color of a thunderbolt. My obeisance is at the lotus feet of the son of Sachi, who is bedecked with ornament of peacock feathers and a garland of red beads, Gunjamala. My obeisance is at the lotus feet of the pupil of Gangadas, that was the teacher of Lord Chaitanya, the beauty of whose lotus face conquers that of 10 million moons. My obeisance is your lotus feet, you who carry the buffalo horn, stick, and flute. Obviously, that's Krishna. The 4 Vedas have proclaimed you to be the son of Nanda. Unto you, my dear Lord, my obeisances I offer again and again. Today my birth activities, everything has become successful. Today my very existence has been crowned with the greatest auspiciousness. Today the race of my forefathers has finally borne fruit, and my house, which is also their house, has become blessed. Today the great fortune of my eyes is completely beyond calculation, because I have been able to see that person whose lotus feet are served by the goddess of fortune. So that is Srivas Thakur's prayer from the Chaitanya Bhagavad. So now a little bit about, time is running out. A little bit about my sannyas. So many years ago, 1978, on this particular day, I took sannyas. Now, so what was the impetus for my taking sannyas? The impetus was that previously, in November 1977, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada passed away. And when Prabhupada passed away, we read and had others read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of Puranjana, where Prabhupada states, using the metaphor of Malaya Dwaja, the queen whose husband has passed away, to illustrate how a disciple should feel when the guru passes away. And Prabhupada, I guess, quoting from the previous acharyas, to say the disciple should be ready to leave this world if the disciple isn't ready to carry out the mission of the spiritual master. And so, seeing Prabhupada's example of being wholly and solely dedicated to his Guru Maharaj, I decided to make a public proclamation of my dedication to Prabhupada's mission, because we all like public proclamations, or vows. Let's say vow. Not that I was so much interested in the public opinion. So what happened is that I decided to take sannyas. And I was recommended at the beginning of 1978, I was recommended for sannyas at the GBC meeting. I was supposed to take the following year. So what happened is that, lo and behold, there were some problems in South America. So it was decided that I would take sannyas a few months early to help protect the devotees, because there was a deviant group who were taking people away from ISKCON, even just right after Prabhupada left. And so I took the reality order of life. And by doing that, it was declaring that my allegiance to Srila Prabhupada wholly and solely. I mean, I was single at the time I took sannyas, so don't worry. At that particular time, I was single. So anyway, I took sannyas, and that's what sannyas means. As we explained last night, sannyas is composed of two words, san and yas. Yas means to give up, and san means to accept. Or as we find that Lord Chaitanya's surrendering practices and principles, that one should accept everything favorable for serving Krishna and reject everything unfavorable. Okay? And so that's what's called yukta vairagya. Like I was mentioning about observing the material world, we observe and think, how can we connect it to Krishna? Just like if you see someone who's very attractive, think, how can I bring them to Krishna? Not how can I enjoy them? You understand? Or if you see an animal, let's say you see a little puppy dog, you don't go, oh, isn't he cute? Isn't he adorable? No, you think, I want to engage him in Krishna's service. Of course, you can also think it's good. I'm not going to find fault with that. So that's the reason I took sannyas, to engage wholly and solely in Srila Prabhupada's service, and haven't looked back. So the question was raised last night. I think I should reiterate this question, that so many sannyasis have had difficulty. How did you maintain your sannyas? Because you took sannyas when you were like 28 years old, a young whippersnapper, as they say. So how did you maintain your sannyas? Well, I maintained it by changing my identification, not my license. I had already been initiated. So instead of thinking, I am the enjoyer, Krishna is the enjoyer. Instead of thinking, Ishwaroham aham bhogi, Siroham bhagavan sukhi, I'm perfect, powerful, happy, I was thinking, Krishna should be perfect. Krishna is perfect and powerful, and he is happy. As he says in the Bhagavad Gita, 529, 5th chapter, text 29. So I was thinking that, so my identification is, I'm a servant. I'm not the enjoyer, even in the name of Krishna consciousness. I should not simply be thinking of my own nectar, my own position. I should be thinking of pleasing Krishna and pleasing Prabhupada. So as soon as one changes that identification in one's mind, then at that point, then one can be fixed in devotional service. But as long as you have what we call an upadi, it doesn't mean you're going ooh. An upadi is a designation. You're identifying with your designation. then you're not going to be fixed. You know, if you think I am identifying with this body, I'm identifying with this mind, I'm identifying with my family, I'm identifying with all these things, then it can't be fixed in Krishna consciousness, because then or I'm identifying with my service. I'm not identifying. My service is to give instruction in Krishna consciousness, but I'm a servant, and a servant should be ready to do anything. In Spanish that's called para todos. You know, one time we had one devotee many, many years ago, and she was in the temple, and I asked her to do some menial service somewhere or other. I was in charge of the temple at that time, in the good old days. I was in charge of the temple, and I asked her, I said, could you do this, not even heavy menial service? She said, what do you think I am? Para todos. Para todos means, it's Spanish, at least where she came from was Chile. Means something for everything. Para, for, todos. Todos means everything. Someone who can do anything. But we should be like that, because we're servants. I'm not a high-class person, a low-class person, this and that. Kopi Bharta Padakamala. Dasa, 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 dasa. Okay, on that happy note, we will allow you all to ask questions. We give you a few seconds to ask questions. Oh, here's a chat question. Okay, happy 45th sannyasa anniversary. Ari Devananda, one may think that we can nullify devotee offense by serving other devotees without asking for forgiveness to whom the offense was committed. Did Devananda Pandit ask forgiveness from Srivas Thakur? Yes. He realized that he offended Srivas Thakur. So also, he approached Srivas Thakur. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out, because actually I neglected that in my narration. I think that was important to mention. I mean, there's many other stories, some of them that we told last night, but I don't think that was recorded, about Srivas Thakur's mother-in-law, and we're not going to tell that story again because it may offend so many mother-in-laws that are listening. So does anyone else have a question? You got 2 more minutes. Questions, comments? You can raise your hand, type in the chat window if you like, or unmute yourself, which if you'd like to do it. No? Anyway, we spoke about a lot of nice topics tonight. And hopefully tomorrow, we will get back to the Jaiva Dharma. And let's see, today is Tuesday here. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay. So for the next 4 or 5 days, we'll be giving this class in the evening by Krishna's grace, if Krishna wants. And then I'll be going to Europe, and I'm not sure how I'll keep the schedule. I may be able to keep the schedule because the time is not prohibitive. The difference in time is not prohibitive as far as giving the class, because right now, it is prohibitive. I was wrong. Just thinking about it. It is prohibitive because it's 5 hours, 6 hours later, so it would be 11 o'clock at night. So we may have to delay giving the classes while I'm in Europe. I'll be in Europe from the 19th of this month, June, to about the 9th of the next month, which is July. Okay. On that happy note, thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki